Good afternoon, everybody. This is Fago Franklin III with New Stitch Media. I am here with Ian Ritchie, who is the Vice President of Sports Illustrated. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, Fago. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you, man. Anytime, anytime. So before we get into your journey, can you give my viewers some words of encouragement for today?
Of course, keep fighting the good fight every single day. No one's going to fight it for you. You got to grind. You got to fight yourself every day to make it happen. And that's kind of an entrepreneur's, saying. And that's what we have to do to make it in this world these days, especially with COVID going on and the difficulties in sports media and live events and things like that. It's very difficult. And so nobody's going to fight as hard as you're going to fight for your own dream.
Amen to that. Thank you for those encouraging words. So how have you adapted since COVID has hit?
It's been difficult, pre-COVID, I was traveling to New York every 2 weeks from Seattle, and it was difficult. That travel was tough, but face-to-face time and integrating your business is really important to be face-to-face with people, and so it's really worth it. With COVID, it's been difficult. It's a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of Zoom meetings, and really trying to stay on the same page with your team is a lot more difficult when you can't be in the same room.
What advice can you give people such as myself, as well as anybody in sports media, about adjusting to this pandemic?
Wow. Just create really good, creative, unique content. I think there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of noise in a lot of space. And creating good, unique content is really the key because it's engaging for people. People want to see it. They want to hear it. There's a lot of content out there that's exactly the same. And so finding out what your niche is and owning that, I think is really important for people.
Okay. So what got you involved with being involved with Sports Illustrated?
Fantasy sports, really. So we own the Fantasy Football World Championships, which is a live event in Las Vegas, been held every year since 2001. And we built a brand around the World Championships and around the top-ranked actual players in the world that play all the national contests. And we built our brand around not just that, but having our content rankings and projections for everything we do done by consistent winners, people that actually win all the time. What I said earlier about noise in space and creating a unique niche content, our goal was always to create a brand that transcended how small our business was at the time and would become a turnkey brand for a major media company who wanted to enter a space. And you have two options in fantasy now. You hire more celebrity journalists to carry the torch for you. And so we took the tack of, hey, these are the best winners that consistently win every year. We can help your audience win. And so our unique niche in that was the top-ranked players in the world doing our content and projections, why they're so good. And it's a unique niche. No one else is doing that. Daily Fantasy started doing that a little bit ago and creating, characters out of their players, much like World Series of Poker did. Before that, though, it was really just us. And we built this brand for this day to be part of a major media company.
So how did you negotiate the contract as well as the value of the brand?
It's difficult, right? It's really difficult to kind of figure out. And I think one of the things that we had discussed right before we got on air is really interesting because your brand and your business has a different value to different buyers, to different partners, depending on what they can do with it, how they can leverage their assets and their people, their communities to help build brand. And so, look, our value would have been different to a Barstool Sports or to an ESPN or to somebody else than it was to Sports Illustrated. Sports Illustrated didn't have a fantasy or a gambling brand in any way. And I think that having us come in and create a brand of the best players and the world-ranked players and really, at the end of the day, helping people win, I think leveraged our brand into a good place with Sports Illustrated. And I think they recognized with the community they have, how they could leverage our brand to make it even a lot bigger, for them than we have it as now, actually.
So did you play last with Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.?
Did I what?
I said, did you watch the fight with Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.?
It's funny you say that. I caught a little bit of it, and my friend and I are going to watch the whole thing today.
Nice.
Yeah. We're going to watch it today. I caught a little bit of it, and I was really excited. I've always been a huge Mike Tyson fan. I've always been a huge Roy Jones Jr. fan. and you bring the old guys out of the closet, it's cool. So I'm actually watching it today. I'm really excited to see that fight.
So, in your perspective, what is going on in Tampa Bay? Is it Tom Brady? Is it Bruce Arians? What's going on with Tampa Bay right now? Your perspective?
The offseason, them not having an offseason to gel, crush them. Bruce Arians has a history with an offense that he runs where quarterbacks have really struggled the first year. Carson Palmer had really struggled the first year in Arizona before he came into his own, really grasping that offense that Arians has. Arians' offense has never really featured tight ends, which Tom Brady's really comfortable throwing to, dumping it off to the backs a little bit when they had David Johnson there in Arizona when he was there. But really, I think it's an adjustment period because what Tom is comfortable doing isn't necessarily in the sweet spot of Bruce Arians' offense.
Mm-hmm. So what does your day look like with you being the GM of Sports Illustrated? What does your day look like?
Well, we do three podcasts, three different podcasts that we run. We run the SI Gambling podcast, we run the SI Fantasy podcast, and we run Bull Market Fantasy, which is a partnership with TheStreet.com and Jim Cramer from CNBC. So we do those each multiple times per week. So it's a lot of getting ready for those. We put out probably 10 to 12 pieces of content a day with a video for each. We cover season-long fantasy. We cover every daily fantasy sport, and we cover 7 or 8 different sports and gambling. So it's really about managing the content, focusing on the important articles and the important content that we can get up that can help people, and really staying focused on with fantasy, helping people win. When they win, they come back constantly. And so my day is packed with meetings, managing all of our writers, talking to our editors, working on new headlines for SEO, going back and looking at our Google Analytics to understand what worked and what didn't from the headlines that we used the week before. A lot of things like that to try and maximize the opportunity. We never had the domain authority before to get SEO results that we do at Sports Illustrated. So it's a learning curve for us to take advantage of all that SEO that they have and that juice that they have in order to maximize the content and page views so it's on top of search. And I think we've gotten a lot better at that over the year, but that's been a real learning curve for us.
What obstacles did you have to endure with building your brand?
Oh, boy. I heard no 850 times. We were the Trekkie convention. Right? Like we'd go to Las Vegas and throw the world championships and they'd tuck us in the corner and didn't want anyone to see us in all of our jerseys. I approached the NFL Network in 2002 about the Fantasy World Championships. They had just launched NFL Network in 02, 03. We approached them. They wanted nothing to do with it. They said, we don't like fantasy. We hate it. Get out of here. Really zero interest. And so, it's difficult being an entrepreneur. It's difficult really carrying the torch every single day when you hear no over and over and over again, but you believe. And so, a lot of it is staying power. We approached ESPN multiple times. We're left at the altar by different companies along the way, from TV channels to sports media companies who liked it and then didn't like it and then liked it and then didn't like it, or had internal politics. For example, ESPN loved the World Championships. They loved the idea originally of all the best players in the world. The problem is they had built their fantasy product around their personalities. And so people like Matthew Berry, who's a friend, it wouldn't help to bring in the best players in the world when he is the brand for ESPN, because I think on some level, there's a disconnect, right? And the disconnect is what's entertainment and what's going to help me win, right? And so for a lot of media companies, the entertainment part is critically important. They act like the winning part and helping people win is important, but it's not, because they don't hire what I call experts. They hire journalists and make them celebrity journalists carrying the water for fantasy, for example.
So in the 2020 NBA free agency, who do you think was the winner?
Ooh, now that's a great question. There was so much movement this year, and there's so many guys changing teams. That's a great question. Man.
76?
Maybe. I mean, look, I think that I think the Lakers did pretty well. And I don't root for the Lakers, but I think anytime you bring in a star power like LeBron and people think they have an opportunity to win a ring, they're going to potentially sign for less money to be part of something. But but yeah, it's a tough one. I think the biggest loser is the Warriors, right? I think the Warriors are in a lot of trouble. The injuries are going to hurt them. Are going to hurt them a lot, and so much movement. It'll be interesting to see. I honestly, I don't know. It'll really depend on how much they can all gel in the offseason, how much they're all able to practice together in this very short window period of time they've been given. It's really difficult to have new guys get on the court and be able to gel without a period of time to really work on it. And the same kind of example we gave with Tampa Bay in football, without having that off-season time to really work with guys, it'll be interesting to tell. So, I mean, on paper, it might be different than who actually ends up being the most successful on the court.
Do you think actually Giannis is going to stay with the Bucks?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I don't know. I think that he's done an amazing job there. I think they've embraced him. They've promoted him. He's not lacking, anything as far as marketing goes. Would he like to be in a bigger market? Probably. But I think it's a great fit for him. It's a really good place for him. And, I never thought LeBron should leave Cleveland when he left, right? I thought that was a terrible mistake. And sometimes you think what's best for you is this bigger market, and it's not always the way it goes. You know what I mean? And so I really hope he stays. I think it's a great fit for him. And what do you think? Give me your opinion.
I don't think they have enough guys to kind of keep him, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like he wants to go to another team that has another star because he don't really have any help.
He doesn't have help.
And bringing Drew Holiday, I like Drew Holiday, but it's not enough to keep Giannis. Giannis, right. Maybe if he could kind of go to like Phoenix, somewhere where, they already have Devin Booker and Chris Paul over there, where they have veteran guys, and he don't need to have the ball in his hands at all given times.
Right.
He just needs that second to third person to actually give more points, and that was their problem.
That is definitely their problem. And look, having the I mean, I hate to say it, but having to bring the ball up and have the ball in your hands all the time really tires you out. You get late in games, it's very difficult. And so having a Robin for Batman there would really help him a lot. I'm not sure he needs three, like, the triumvirate superstars, but getting some help would definitely help him. I hope he waits it out there. I don't like it when I see guys just always leave for, the bigger market, the bigger star. I would love to see him be able to lead them to a championship there. That would be very cool.
And I definitely agree with you on that. And we're going to go right back to football real quick. What teams are very intriguing to you, and what teams are kind of disappointing this season?
I love Buffalo. I like the way they play. Josh Allen has found ways to win. He was getting criticized a lot. He wasn't a great passer. His passing percentage in college wasn't as high as other guys, but he's so athletic and he can run the football, and he's making good decisions. They got him some talent this year at receiver. I think when they have John Brown healthy, they're a completely different team, and they're just a great team. I really like Buffalo. I think they're going to surprise some people. I'm a Seahawk fan by nature. And, I try not to be a homer with them. I think our defense is going to really let us down. I think signing Carlos Dunlap and getting him in there helps a lot. When Jamal Adams is healthy, it helps an enormous amount. They finally figured out that they can bring Jamal up closer to the line. He can disrupt things. And so Seattle can make some noise. Their defense is getting better every week. It feels like they're getting better. And I think the Seahawks will make noise, and I hate to be a homer. But I like the Seahawks. I like Buffalo. I mean, obviously Kansas City is almost unstoppable. I just can't buy into the Tampa Bay hype. I think that Brady's never had so many weapons with him, but I don't see it happening for him this year. So I would really love to see Buffalo somehow, come out of this thing and get to the Super Bowl. That would be pretty cool.
It is 2020, so anything can happen.
That's right.
Look at the Browns. They're on a winning streak out there. And the last question I'm going to ask you is, what advice could you give people about taking the leap of faith and just maintaining their strength, their dignity, and not getting stuck into the perception of social media?
Well, so real quick on the Browns, I really like the Browns. They run the football so well. I love Chubb, and I think having a 1-2 punch with him and Kareem Hunt is really amazing and good. I'm not sure I trust Baker yet. I should, because their record is so good. But I just don't trust him in a big game. To answer that question, it's tough, man, right now. It's really difficult on a lot of people. People are having a tough time adjusting to this new world we're kind of in with coronavirus. But it's just belief. You know, I can't say that word enough. And I try and say that a lot to people. Never lose belief. I mean, there's times in my journey that we've had failures, and you start to doubt yourself. You start to doubt what you're doing, and you need support, right? It can't just be you. You need people to help pull you up, whether it's mentors, whether it's friends, whether it's other folks in the industry. And I think that's one of the most important parts. And if you have that, you can survive pretty much anything. You just really have to believe, and that's in your heart. And you have to have a motor that's always running. And if your motor's always running and you believe, then I think great things always happen. And great things happen to people that just keep pounding every single day. If you take days off and your motor's not always running, somebody else is, and they're going to pass you up. And that's a very difficult thing for a lot of entrepreneurs to grasp. It is really difficult. If you're in the corporate world, a lot of people do their 5 days a week. As an entrepreneur, a 5-day work week is our enemy, right? It's those extra 2 days is where we make hay, right? When everybody else is sleeping and we're up. And I just think that everybody has to have that attitude all the time of I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, and I believe. And you know, a support system is critically important to that.
I love everything you say. I'll let you go real quick. How long you been in the field?
How long have I been what?
How long you been in the field?
Well, yeah, so we started in fantasy football with a site in 1997. And so it goes back a ways. I've played since I was in high school. I graduated high school in 1988, so I'm dating myself a little bit. Yeah, I'm 50. Crazy.
You don't look,
but, you know, thank you. That's a great compliment. I appreciate that. It's difficult because you know, you go through things and you fight things all the way. And I'll tell you, man, I really enjoy talking to entrepreneurs and people that are on their way up like you. You know, I really enjoy spending time on interviews and talking to people that are fighting for the same things I fought for years and years and years. And I've been in your shoes. I've been in everybody's shoes who's trying to get there. And you know, I feel very fortunate that we landed where we did. And I just think that as an entrepreneur, man, the most important thing every single day is that belief in what you're doing. And we started this thing in 97. We started, you know, we restarted the Fantasy Football World Championships after some issues in the mid 2000s after it was sold once, and we relaunched it. It's been a heck of a long journey, a lot longer than I would have ever thought. Never think it's going to be a short journey. It's always going to take a lot longer than you think. And so, you know, we've been at it for a long, long, long time. And sometimes you need to have that staying power in order to stay in the game. And I think that's been the most important thing for us, because there's a lot of times that we could have been slayed, you know, and that we didn't. We continued to rise up every time we were told no. And in 20 years, there's a lot of failures and a lot of no's. And everybody just has to be ready for a lot of no's, but to keep your faith.
Amen. Where can my followers find your journey? Do you have Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn?
No, I don't. You know, it's a choice I made that I was not going to get involved in social media. I think that there's a lot of people on my team that help make up for that because I think social media is such an important part of today's world, especially connecting with the younger generation and people on their way up and the younger kids and everything. It's just nothing for me, right? I made a personal choice to not be involved in social media. I don't like being tied to it. I'm not a self-promoter in any way. I kind of enjoy being back here, you know, and behind the scenes and letting everybody else be up front and let everybody else have it. So I don't have Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter. I never had MySpace. I've just never touched any of it. And, you know, look, I think for a lot of people, that's kind of funny to hear in this day and age, especially in media. But like I said, I'm okay being in the background with my team, being in the front and being the face and getting credit for lots of things.
Amen to that. Yeah. There you go, everybody. Thank you for joining me on the show. I love everything you're saying. You know, it inspires me. I've been in the field for 8 years. I'm just like you. I'm building my own brand. You know, from a sports journalist to being a public relations figure. So I understand that drive, that goal you have to meet. working 7 days a week. You know, I work 18 hours a day, so I completely understand that drive, and you inspire me, my friend.
You know what? I appreciate that, and you know, I've followed you for a little while, and I've watched you on LinkedIn, which is, I guess, considered social media. Is that considered social media? I don't know. Okay, so there's one I got. But I've watched you for a while, and I like the hustle, and I like what you're involved with, and you're always working, and you're always posting, and I watch, and I see it. And so, you know, when you reached out to me, I was happy to jump on with you. I respect you. I respect what you're doing. I respect the journey you're on, and I'm rooting for you, my man. I really am. And anything I can always do to help you, let me know.
Always, man. We're going to change subjects in a few minutes, but thank you again for joining me. It was definitely a pleasure, and we'll talk soon, buddy.
Thanks a lot, Fago. Have a good day.
Yes, sir. You too.
Yeah, see you, man.
Yes, sir.